All right, welcome back to the Poison Podcast, episode 2. Before I get into the guests that are joining me today, I wanted to congratulate the 2 winners from the last episode. We had Frank Salas, who won the Jewels of the Rainforest book, and Jason Diaz, who won a little collection of DN magazines. Anyhow, let's get into the new episode. It's going to be with Jack Small and with Marc Knox. We'll go ahead and Marc, thank you for joining. You want to let everyone know a little bit about yourself? We've known each other for years, but I don't know if everyone else knows who you are.
Yeah, how you doing? My name is Marc Knox. My name is Marquise, but my friends call me Marc. I've been in the hobby for a little bit. Back around the early 90s, I started getting my feet wet with different types of reptiles, and everything kept destroying my beautiful terrariums until I finally got introduced to dart frogs. And at the time, there were different types of Aratus and, Azurius and Tinctorius and things like that. And I realized that, I enjoy keeping dart frogs. And then one thing led to another. And many moons passed. Here we are today. So I've been doing frogs for a long time, just kind of behind the scenes. The people that know me know me. The people that don't, I kind of lay low, and just have fun. But I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Josh, for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on, man. We've known each other for a while. We've done a little business back and forth, been talking for years, so I'm glad I finally got you on. And Jack,
Yeah.
same thing, man. Jack Small. You've been a kind of a big name lately, man, with all these photographs you've been pumping out. I think I've seen a lot of your work and been following you. I think before I even never had a chance to talk to you. So I'm really glad to have you on the show. Why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, man. For sure. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Excited for our chat here. It's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, my name's Jack Small. I've been in the hobby for over 10 years now. I think I started back in 2013. So I was 13 years old when I started and started out, just like a lot of people, Lukes, Tinks, that kind of stuff, and just became obsessed like most people. And, here I am today. I'm still keeping quite a bit. I've cut down my collection a bit. I used to, at my most, I had like 65 tanks. I had a lot. I've cut it down quite a bit because I travel a lot. These days, I do a lot of trips to Central and South America. I'm running my photography tours and seeing all these frogs in the wild. And so I've been going to Panama, Colombia, and Peru, and been focusing on that, doing a lot of photography there and bringing people down so they can see and photograph the frogs, teaching them how to do it, running the trips. It's been a lot of fun. It's been great. And I still keep a few frogs. I got some mostly Ufaga Pumilio these days. That's my favorite frog to keep. Or my favorite genus is Ufaga, but I've kept just about everything over the years. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Awesome, man. Well, I think Marc already knows that Ofaga is also my favorite, and especially the small forms from Panama. And that's kind of what I think
Yeah.
we're on here to talk about, or what I'd like to talk about. Your guys' last trip
Yeah.
to Bastamentos. Yeah, so let's get into that. Let's talk about that last Bastamentos trip you guys went on. Like what all it entailed, how you guys got it together. I know you've got a thing going, Jack, with I'm going to butcher the name. Is it Tranquility Bay? Or
Tranquilo, close.
Tranquilo
Tranquilo.
Bay. Okay.
You got it.
Yeah, why don't we talk a little bit about that, like how this all sprung up? I know you do these tours all the time, but what all it entailed and like how you guys got there and all that.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead. Go ahead and tell them a little bit about
So,
share your experience and how you found it and everything.
so before we get into the trip, I'll tell you just a little bit about how I ended up taking that trip. Like I told you guys, I started with frogs a long time ago, but like Jack and Josh, I'm really into the Ufaga. You know, on my signature, I always saw pums and thumbs. I felt like I wanted to have frogs that took care of their tadpoles because I've always had lukes and
Yeah.
tinks where they had to work. You got to work to take care of those tadpoles, and it takes a lot of
Yeah.
time. Where the thumbnails and the pomilio or a faga, they take care of their own babies, so there's no work on your part. You just wake up one day and
Sure.
there's a little baby in the tank. I've always been interested in those, and then I've always wanted to go see what they were like in the wild, but I never really thought it was a possibility until 2016. I was invited to go to Peru. I went to Peru and I got to see my thumbnails, several of them in the wild. And then last year, I saw Jack had posted a trip to Colombia. Wasn't really sure I was interested in going to Colombia for what I consider obvious reasons. I always felt like
Yeah.
the cartel and drugs, and it's just not safe.
It's a
At any
stigma.
rate, Jack talked me into it. We went to Colombia. It was a rough trip to say the least, but I had a blast and I saw frogs that I thought I'd never see before. And then right after that, shortly thereafter, he mentioned that he was also going to Bocas del Toro. And I always wanted to see where my Pomilio came from. I've had, at one time I had one of the largest collections of Pomilio around. And I really enjoyed, seeing the Pomilio and the different morphs. And I wanted to know where they were from. And I saw a video on YouTube where a gentleman had went on his honeymoon or something like that, and he island hopped. And I was like, holy crap, I would love to do that. And then so when Jack mentioned he was going to Bocas del Toro, I kind of saw it as list number 3 on my bucket list. Excuse the fruit flies, as we all know, right? List or place number 3. You know, I figure if I can go see my thumbnails in Panama, or I'm sorry, Peru, I can go see my large Ufaga in Colombia, and now I can go see my Pomilio in Bocas del Toro. That was like, who needs to live after that? Like that was my dream trip, you know, to be able to do those things. So when I saw Jack had posted that and we talked about it, I had timing was lined up, and I decided to go, and I'm glad we went because while it was, in my opinion, easier than Colombia, it was a lot more frogs. I got to island hop. I got to see a lot of things I wanted to see in addition to, you know, some of the other things that happen here. So that's how we kind of came to meet each other, you know, and obviously after spending weeks in the jungle with someone, you get to know them well. They're good, they're bad,
Yes.
you know.
Which is part of the fun. That's what I love about it for sure.
I cussed Jack out a
Bonding
couple
over the
times.
frogs. Yeah.
Yeah, me and Jack, I cussed Jack out a couple times going through the Colombian jungle. He laughed and we had a great time. But it was a blast, and it was bucket list for any person that wants to keep dart frogs, to see them in the wild and to be able to see the plants and see their habitat and all of those things. It just gives you a greater understanding of, one, how to keep, and two, some of the things that we're missing. You know, and not to continue on, but Josh, you and I talked a little bit about how in the early days we assumed what these frogs needed because we really didn't have the information. You know, there weren't people that went there and came back and told us how to keep these frogs. So we would do stupid stuff like feed Pomilio chicken yolk eggs, and
Yeah.
you know, because we saw it in a
And
book
crickets.
somewhere or something. You know, and that's the end of the thing. You're right. And cricket and thumb and crickets, like you said, pinhead.
Yeah, you give them a cricket the size of the damn frog.
So, you know,
Yeah.
now we have a lot more information, and, you know, people have had tremendous success, you know, breeding these frogs in captivity. But for me, the ultimate opportunity was to be able to see them in the wild, see how they operate, see how they called, see how they lived, and just see their habitats. And it gave me a greater understanding of not just the frogs themselves, but plants, the culture, you know, for the people that lived where the frogs were and everything else. So it was a great opportunity.
Cool. That's awesome. And I just want the listeners to understand, when you are talking about this last trip, they can actually check this out. Jack has a video of their trip to go see, I believe it was Baja Solana. Wasn't that like one of the main things in the trip? Or was it Koi?
That was a different trip I did, but I do have a video on that. Yeah, if anybody wants to check that out. But I
I'm
did
talking
do a
about the one
video
that actually
from
Marc was on.
Yeah, the one that Marc, was I
Whitefoot.
have a Norino video and then
Okay.
also one seeing Lamani.
Because
So I've got
that
both of
was
those on my YouTube
that
channel
trip
if you want to
looked
check them out.
crazy.
That was the one seeing the Lamani was, it was really intense. And so, like Marc was touching on a little bit, the Colombian trips to see those frogs, it's a lot more intense than seeing Pomilio in Panama. So it depends on what you want to do and how important it is to you to see certain frogs. But if you want to see a lot of frogs, all the different Pomilio and stuff, Panama's a breeze. Like, we barely hike at all. You know, it's still rewarding to find the frogs and really fun. But Colombia, you definitely, you know, we're out there for a couple hours. We're hiking in pretty hard stuff, and you know, when you find one, it's like, we found one. Finally, you know, like if you find 1, 2, 3, like, you're over the moon, you know. But Pomilio, it's like they're everywhere, and it's just as fun. You get to go see all the different populations and colors and locales and everything. But it's a different style of trip, a little
Right.
less adventurous. You know, you're staying in places, or the place that we stay at, Tranquilo Bay. There's AC, fantastic food, you know, super comfortable. You've got wildlife right out your doorstep. Just, it's a different style trip. But yeah, both fun.
Jack, would you say that the Peru trip is kind of the best of both worlds? Like it's a little challenging, but not as much as Colombia, and
Exactly.
there's as
Yep.
many frogs as there was in Panama.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd say we honestly see more frogs in Peru, I feel like, and it is a good balance between, like, adventure and comfort. So Colombia is kind of the extreme for, like, okay, you like a lot more adventure, seeing a fewer frogs, but really special, cool frogs. And then Panama, a lot of frogs out of Pomilio, but super easy. And then Peru, yeah, like you said, best of both worlds, kind of right in the middle. Still get some good adventure, still hiking for sure, but not at the same level as the Colombian hikes. And yeah, we see on the last trip, I counted at the end, and sent a list to everybody. I think the final count was 26 different species and locales. So we see a ton in Peru for sure. It's a lot of fun for sure. But yeah, they're all different style trips depending on what you're looking for.
And Josh, I'll tell you, I went to Peru with Black Jungle in 2016, And
Mhm.
I've heard other people go with several other different types of vendors. When you go to Peru, you can't mess up. Like all you do is go in the jungle, and there's
Mhm.
frogs literally right off the side of the road. They're everywhere, and that's what I
Mhm.
felt like when I was in Panama. We would get
Yeah,
off the
they're
bus
everywhere.
literally right in the drainage ditch.
Right there.
There's 15
Yeah, and then at
parkland.
chiaroscuro,
They're
yeah, when
darklands,
we
yeah,
start
remember those?
yeah, when we saw the Darklands, yeah.
And the young
Yeah,
lady
they're
with the young lady with the machete.
yeah, they're literally everywhere there. I was just there a couple weeks ago, and they're literally everywhere. As you're walking, you have to be careful where you're stepping because they're just all through the banana leaves that are down and let the leaf litter and everything. So yeah, that's a fun one. But yeah, that's one of the fun things about Panama for sure. If you want to see a lot of frogs, like you're gonna see a lot of frogs on that trip for sure.
I think the only place that we had a tough time finding frogs, what was the first place where we went and found the Aratus, Jack? We seen the green, Panamanian Aratus?
I
They
don't
had
recall off
they
the
had
top of my head.
they had blue frogs also, so the guides went in to catch the blue frogs, and we found all the Aratus under the, pavilion.
So when you
Oh,
guys
Loma Partida. Yeah,
oh,
Loma
brilliant.
Partida. Yeah, Josh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so when you guys got there, did you
Mhm.
guys do the flight into Panama City to Cologne and then take a boat out?
Yeah. So,
Okay,
for my trips, the way I run, yeah, everybody meets in Panama City, and then from there we all fly together to East of Cologne, like you said, to the Bocas del Toro airport. It's like an hour flight. It's beautiful too. It's really, really
sure.
nice. And then when you land in East of Cologne, yeah, the people from Tranquilo Bay, they come pick us up in a van, load us all in there, and then we take like a 25-30 minute boat ride to Isla Bastamenos, where we stay at Tranquilo Bay. So it's, yeah, flying to Panama City, fly to Bocas del Toro, boat over to Isla Bastamenos.
Gotcha. And how many localities were you guys actually able to see on this last trip in Bastamentos Island?
I think we saw, well, just on so when we're staying at Bastamenos, we take boats, we go out on the excursions and island hop, like Mark was
Mhm.
saying, each day, two different ones. Actually on Bastamenos, we saw four or five, I think. But then throughout the trip, we saw over a dozen, I think. Do you remember the final count, Mark?
No, I was,
It was,
going
I
through
think it
my
was 14, maybe.
I almost forgot. We stopped in
Yeah.
so many little off the wall little holes where I would never think that the frogs would be,
Yeah.
and, I
Like Punta Laurel.
Ponce Road. That was like a lagoon that I would never
Yeah.
think that you
Right
wouldn't
next
expect
to
to
the
see
water.
saltwater crocodiles there, and there was frogs
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then the other place, Jack, was the little island we went where we saw the green basilisks, where we're talking about that with the red frog.
Yeah, down the river there, yeah.
Like, we jumped off there was only really one place to get off the boat, Josh, and when we
Yeah.
got off the boat, like, you really couldn't go anywhere. It was, like, probably 25, square feet where you kinda were standing there going,
Mhm.
"Where's the frogs?" And then all of a
What
sudden, you hear all the
island were you
calls.
guys on?
That was mainland.
Okay, and what frog?
That was
What
mhm.
what locality were you guys finding there? What were you looking
That
for?
was that was Changuinola, so they came into the hobby, I believe in 2019, and I think they fizzled out already somehow, which is super unfortunate, but they're a big dark red frog, kinda like Rio Caribe,
Right.
um, or Puerto Viejo, similar to
Gotcha,
those, but,
gotcha.
big red frog, really, really cool. Yeah, so it was all of us just on that small little patch of land, like Mark was just saying,
Yeah,
off the canal there, and it was really cool. They were everywhere there
I'm
too.
I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and it's
Oh, yeah.
very intriguing. It looks like something I've seen before. I'm assuming it was probably a later import, maybe when I was getting out of the hobby, because I don't remember
I
that
never saw
ever.
'em either, Josh.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't
I think
seen
it was
that
20
coming
it was
in.
18 or 19.
But it
Yeah.
does look like initially, as soon as I saw it, Josh, I thought it was a real Terrible also. And Jack,
Yeah.
just to tell you a quick story about Josh and I.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year it was, but I remember I can't remember what I was
2015,
trying to get
baby.
some froggies. Yeah. And, yeah, it was 2015 because I was going through my 16 album last night and I saw those frogs in there, Josh. So I'm getting something from him. And he goes,
Yeah.
I'll just send you a few other odds and ends, bro. He sends me a breeding group of like 5 or 6 frogs, bro. It was amazing, those frogs.
Nice.
And
What were they?
they were real Terrible. They look just like
Oh, okay, okay.
you.
Cool.
And, that's
They're
why
cool
I asked you.
frogs.
Those were tanks and they bred like rabbits,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
but
Nice.
he inspired me to give frogs away. So when
Nice.
people will come by, they would, want to get into the
Well, you
hobby,
gotta
you
you
know,
gotta back you gotta back the story up because back in 2000, like somewhere between 2016 to 17, when I started kind of dwindling my collection down, because I had a mass. I mean, I
Yeah.
had way too many Pamilio. I got the
Yeah.
Pokemon thing. Got to collect them all. But when I
Uh-huh.
yeah,
when I
right.
was
Uh-huh.
getting
So it goes.
well, when I was getting out, taking this hiatus, had just family stuff going on and moving. Everyone that had frogs at that time already had everything. So getting rid of frogs and the fact that Panama was still exporting, like selling a
Right.
collection was not easy. Like right now, I could probably find 7 people that would buy a whole collection
Yeah.
of $10,000
Easy.
worth of frogs right now. Just,
Right.
but back then it was not like that. I think I had like
Yeah.
3 full list of Pamilio, and I was giving them the pairs or trios with every baby in the tank, which Mark knows. Like, I think my Rio Tribes had like, I think it was like
Yeah.
a trio with like 8 babies or something, or maybe more. But I was
Yeah.
selling them just for the price I got the pairs for, with the Viv, the
Oh,
lights, and all the babies.
oh God.
And I
So
look
what, like
back.
300, $400?
Oh no, it was worse than that. I think I was giving away
Yeah.
Oh,
trios of Rio Calubra, the original imports, for like
Right.
250 for the
300.
trio
Yeah,
plus all the
250,
babies.
$300 for a trio plus the babies. Yep.
But that's how much they
that's
were
I
back
mean,
then.
I was around back then and like I scored a few deals like that, but I mean, God, there's gonna be people listening to this right now being like, "Oh my God, like I can't even imagine that." You'll sell just like a single unsexed for that these days. Like,
Yeah.
that's nuts.
And inflation is real.
Yeah.
Inflation is
Supply and
real.
demand.
So I'm
Yeah,
so
but no,
so
inflation.
so there was, and I'm gonna post, just so everyone knows, I'm gonna be posting all these pictures up for everyone. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff I'm seeing in here that you guys saw, especially on since we're on the top of Faga small form Panama.
Mhm.
There is a frog that I see a lot coming on here. A lot of the pictures that I haven't really seen in the hobby in a long time. It's basically just your stereotypical red cemetery, but with the high white. Those high white sides.
Mhm.
And I have not
Mhm.
seen those in the hobby in so many years now.
Yeah.
So Josh, when we got to Bastamentos, I can tell you that I don't know how it is in the rest of the country, but in the Northeast here, we have very big cemeteries with walls and iron bars and
Sure.
gates. So to me, when I see a cemetery, that's what I thought a cemetery would look like. When we got to Isla Bastamentos and we went to the cemetery, first we hiked up, nice little walk up through town, and there are no cars in the town. Everything's walking, walking streets, and it's beautiful. It's a Caribbean, town.
There's people around,
Right.
there's chickens running around, there's
Yeah.
dogs and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's, kind of what you'd picture. Yeah.
And we walk up 100 yards, and when we get to the cemetery, there was probably 5 raised caskets, and maybe Jack, am I wrong? Maybe 100 graves?
Yeah, I'd say around that.
Maybe
Yeah,
100
probably around
graves.
100.
And then there was a really, really big tree almost in the middle of the cemetery, and all of the frogs were around that tree. Now, you would think that a huge cemetery is where you would see frogs everywhere. Literally, it was that one tree,
Yeah.
and there was raised tiled graves,
Yeah. They're beautiful.
and
Yeah.
there were frogs everywhere.
It
And
was cool. Yeah.
they were so varied, from brown to red to orange to green to gold dust to green. And then we got all the pictures to show, and they were all within like maybe 4 or 5 yards of each other. And you
Yeah,
just
that one tree is definitely the hotspot because the rest of it, so my theory is just because, it's a cemetery, and so they cleared a lot of land there, right? So there's the graves, and there aren't frogs, like Mark's saying, they're just around this tree. They're not all through the rest of the graves, but at that one spot they are. But you've got forest all around you, and then there's the cemetery within the forest, and you can
Okay.
hear them calling like all in the forest and stuff.
Mhm.
But then they're only really found like right by that main tree. At least I've been there 3 times, and that's the only spot that I've really seen them at. And yeah, you get those really high white ones there too, which is super, super cool. And that's the only spot that I've personally seen the really high white ones. And yeah, man, I wish those were still around more because or in the hobby, because they're so, so cool. Those are my favorite. That's like my favorite Bastamenos
Well,
phenotype of like Bastamenos.
I've been having quite a few. I mean, like I said, Pamilio was kind of, the Panamanian Ophaga is kind of my
Hmm.
thing, whether it's
Hmm.
Vicente, Grannies,
Yeah.
But, I've been having these conversations with a lot of people, especially centered around cemetery, just because I noticed that when I look back on my old pictures, I was
Hmm.
working with, I believe they were 1998 Todd Kelly line imports. They really looked a lot, and I'll post a picture of it up because there is a blue. Well, it's what I would consider a blue Bastamentos, and what I think that the greens and the blues that we called back in the day were kind of like an oddball gold dust. They just kind of like they have the gold dust markings, the gold dust legs, but they kind of like just maybe like, I don't know what it is that they get that blue or that green. I used to call them mints because I'd get these like really nice.
Yeah,
They,
they do have a minty.
yeah, they weren't a deep green. They were just kind of a mint green. And then the blue's kind
Yeah,
of like a sky blue. But the legs are so unique for that locality because I remember they were like giraffe legs, almost like a golden yellowish
yeah.
blotches, and I
Well,
remember the
so
variability was there. It was blue,
mhm,
green, yellow, red, orange, and then the gold dust and peach. But I
mhm,
feel like maybe we've been line breeding them or something because I don't see the variation, and I don't see people keeping them um, in the multitude of colors. Like when we were keeping them back in the early 2000s, I never once saw somebody show off their basties and there be like, just red or just yellow. It would be a whole group of like,
yeah, it's all
yeah. And I'm wondering if we have something to do with this, throwing it off because I don't see people
with people
having
line breeding.
I mean, I don't see people selling a group of 3 different colors. I see people selling yellows with yellows, reds with
Mm,
reds, orange with orange, and I kinda wondered if
mhm,
if the gold dust kick was what started it off because that was the first basties I saw people segregate, other than things that need to be kept by themselves because of their own locality, like
right,
Red Frog Beach or something like that. But those
of course,
phenotypes,
yeah.
that are in cemetery, I feel like when gold dust got taken out of the equation, that was the last time I ever saw a green or blue Bastamentos. So
Yeah, I think you're probably right that people, they're like, "Oh, okay, I wanna get more gold dust, so I'm gonna put 2 gold dust together and not mix, like, an orange with a gold dust or whatever." I mix them still because, I mean, you can, and
yeah.
I get varied offspring, but you know what I've never ever had is in the at least the same round of froglets, I've never had a yellow, an orange, and another orange or whatever. It's always one color. Like if I get 3, they're all yellow. I get 2, they're both orange, whatever it is. So yeah, it's interesting. But
That's a
even if
cool
the parents
observation.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, even if the parents are, mixed colors like orange female, yellow male, whatever, which I have a pair of those right now. And the babies they come out orange. So yeah, it's interesting, but
So I got a different observation, Jack. What
yeah.
I found is kind of along the lines of what Josh made reference to. So
Hmm.
when you have a group of Basti like that and you put them all together, I used to have a 36-inch XO by 24, and I used to keep them all together in there. And
Hmm.
I didn't get just orange. The fun of having a group like that is that you never know what you're going to get.
Right, you never know who's breeding. You
Never,
don't know which male is going to what female and
but
who's
more
yeah.
importantly, so I learned this when I was in Peru when we were talking about, like, for example, hybridizing dart frogs and trying to find dominant traits, right? So this kind of goes against the science, right? So if you think when you have a bunch of basties together with different patterns, you would tend to think that one pattern, regardless of what it is going to be the dominant one. So if you got a more chocolate
Mhm,
or a brown and cream type, dart frog versus a
mhm,
green or a yellow, you would think when they breed, there will be, like you said, just the orange. But for some reason at cemetery, that doesn't happen. At cemetery, they all breed together and you get
right,
all
you
different
get
types
all
of
of them.
frogs together. And it's not like, you're only going to get orange frogs. They were, like I said, a vast array
Yeah.
of variability in the frogs that were under that tree. So
Yeah,
I don't know if and why there is no dominant trait to take over. So, because by now,
yeah,
all of those frogs should almost look alike, right?
right, yeah, that is an interesting point, and that's one of the few locales that is that variable, because most other locales have a dominant trait. Most of the frogs are blue, or most of the frogs are the lime green, or whatever it is, but yeah, Bastimouse is a unique one where they just have
The,
tons of different phenotypes, but
the only other
I'll
place that
share
was like that wasn't Loma Partida,
uh,
where
yeah, where we went the
with the orange.
where we went, they're mostly blue.
No, 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 back up, I'm sorry, where was it where
Popa.
we went where there was
Popa?
Popa, when they had him in the bag, he had orange frogs and yellow frogs and blue and green frogs
That's
and
another super one, yeah.
super variable,
Mhm.
like, none
Yeah, because
you
you've
had
got
orange frog right
Yeah,
next to
you've
a
got
green one.
tons of Popas.
Yeah.
There's like Popa West 1 and 2, and there's like a whole list if you go through the
But Josh,
Yeah.
forest guide.
I'm talking within a 100-yard area. We found frogs that you would
Hoppers,
never
oranges, yellows, greens.
look like
Yeah.
yellows, umbers, oranges. Some with spots, some with
We
solids.
dude, do you remember that one that was high orange with like the aqua sides and the spots? Do you remember that one? I've got a nice picture of it. I'll send it to you later. You'll remember when you see it. It was a really cool one. I'll share a piece of information with you and a quick story too about the trip regarding Bastamenos. One thing about the variability with Bastamenos, who you guys may know this. I don't know if everybody does. I think most people don't, but it is something that I've heard before and also something that I've seen in the familial book, the complete Uflaga familial. They mention how Isla Cologne frogs had been in the past brought over to Bastamenos to just for local people doing that for tourists, brought
Yep.
over just so that they had more frogs to see. And so there are Isla Cologne genetics in some of the Bastamenos frogs, supposedly. I believe it after seeing it. I've read it in the book and I've heard other people tell me that too. And so I do believe it. I don't know if it's 100% proven, but if you see some of those frogs, you can see in the legs, like you were talking about, those giraffe kind of pattern legs. That's so Isla Cologne. That's what the
Yeah.
frogs look like on Isla Cologne. And
Yeah,
so
I've never heard
they're
anyone say that because that makes a lot of sense because the Dragos have that same exact giraffe pattern
they
or
have
what
the
I call
exact same
giraffe.
thing.
I now the only thing I have
Yeah.
confirmed 100% because I've seen the documentation of it is if you ever watch the documentary A Red Frog Beach Story,
Yep.
it's been around for a while. You can look it up on YouTube. They go to the island prior to Red Frog Beach, the what do you call it? The resort being built, and it was
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
and it was at a time when they were doing construction. It pretty much almost wiped out Red Frog Beach population. I mean, they dwindled to almost nothing. And
Yep.
then it's like fast forward when they come back. Well, in a portion of that
They're
video,
orange.
well, that's so they were all red, but when they got decimated, the kids would go out into the jungle, grab frogs, bring them
Right.
back to the beach, and now you've got a bunch of orange frogs on the beach. And I'm assuming they were probably something like cemetery or I don't know you
The
would probably know better
standard
than
looking
I would, but
Bastamenos, exactly.
yeah.
Right.
And if you go there now and see, they're not the typical white feet, white belly, red frog, fine black spot. That's not what exists there anymore. They're very standard looking Bastamenos. They're all mostly orange. When I was just there last, I found right at RFB a yellow Pomelio. And so like not red at all, like bright, like yellow, like a nice yellow. So yeah, 100% the frogs there have been brought over from other areas now. And so the frogs at RFB aren't the true RFB anymore, unfortunately. They're still pretty, but they're very similar to what you can find in other places around the island.
So Josh, I'll interject, right? I agree with Jack, right? We did see variable, but I will tell you that there were, in my opinion, a number of red frog beach frogs that looked exactly like the ones that Robert and John Paganis, like the old school solid red,
like
white belly.
OG RFBs.
Yeah. And they were like big black spots, tiny black spots, no black spots. And then right next to that was an orange looking one. You're like, bro, that looks like a traditional one. That looks like a regular
I think
Bastamentos.
when
And then,
I
like
think
you
back
said,
in the day when we were arguing about the Red Frog Beach, because I remember when it came in, people were just kind of like blowing it off. It was that white belly that kind of like
Right.
separated them,
Right.
and then just like that, the brightest
And the
cherry
cherry red.
Yeah, bright
Cherry,
cherry
yeah,
red.
yeah.
And every once in a while,
Exactly.
I got some pictures.
I see people with orange ones every once in a while, and I'm kind of hesitant, but it's what it is.
But that's because we've seen with the other one. I just want to show you guys real quick. I don't know if I got the picture, but Jack, is this the one you're talking about?
Let me see here.
That looks like
That's
Salt
almost-
Creek.
From Popa?
Yeah, from Popa.
Yeah, that might have been.
So-
No, that's a wicked one. The
So-
one that I was talking about had some black on its sides a little bit.
So check this out, Josh.
but
See that guy, right?
Similar.
And then there
Yeah.
was one that was right next to it, and he looked like this.
Okay, yeah,
That's a really, really cool spot. And most people, when they think of Popa, it's green and blue. And yeah, that is one of the Popa locales, but that's the southern Popa locale versus the northern Popa locale. That's a lot more variable. I don't know what's in the middle of the island. I haven't been there, but that locale,
They're
that
very
population
variable.
of Popa is super variable, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
They got like some nice coppers, yellows, greens, blue. Yeah, they're cool.
It was
And then
extreme. It was extreme. It was like blue and copper all the way, blue and yellow all the way over to solid yellows and golds and greens.
Yep.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
So hey,
Really
I want
pretty.
to ask both.
They all have a metallic kind of look to them there too, which is cool. But yeah,
Wait, yeah, kind of like the Loma Perdita metallic, like like
similar, very similar.
almost like a sparkle shine or whatever.
Really.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
for sure.
I wanted to ask both of you guys just because we are kind of having an in situ talk. Since you guys have both been there,
Mhm.
obviously, Jack, you've spent a lot more time there. Is there anything kind of like unique about being in Panama that you saw, like how the frogs are in the wild? Like I talked to Julio last time on the first episode about seeing small and large form redheads and how
Mhm.
the environment was so much different than he thought it would be. You know, like there, some of them it was like very
So hot and dry
dry,
there.
and I've kind of heard the same thing about Pamilio. I've talked to people that will find them in like coffee orchards and stuff with no leaf litter, like
Mhm.
blazing sun. What did you guys
Mhm.
see when you were there? Because I think it's important for people when they're keeping these dart frogs to take something away from what people have observed. You know, like when I keep fish, for instance, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to mimic the environment, I want to mimic as close as I can. And I do notice that some of the frogs we keep wrong. Like if I had, if I were to keep, you know, some of the, you know, like excabates and stuff like that, I would probably be keeping them wrong because now I know that they're in cloud forest. They like cooler weather, stuff like that. What did you guys notice with Pamilio in Panama or anything
Yeah,
notable?
Mark, go ahead.
Uh,
Tell 'em what
so
you think.
I think for me it was noticeable that how close they were to the ocean. However,
Yeah.
there was still a very high amount of humidity for some reason. Like you can have a breeze 5 feet away from what felt like 100% humidity. So it was a constant change. Like it wasn't super wet or super dry. Like, sometimes
Mhm.
certain places we went and it was really, really wet. And then there were certain places we went and it was just traditional, what I call rainforest, right?
Mhm.
Humid, dry, and anybody knows that have familial, you can pretty much keep them all the same. You give them, as long as there's a little bit of airflow, you got decent plant growth, as long as they're not soggy, super soggy wet. You
Which
you know,
people do a
you'll
little too much. I think people
yeah,
keep them too wet, but
you
yeah,
you
go
do.
ahead.
I do too. I've learned that, if you keep them a
Mhm.
little bit drier, like I keep the fans now on my tanks a little bit, I let them dry out a little bit, but I also I mist a little more, but I leave it more open, which obviously
Mhm.
creates a microclimate in my room that I don't like
Mhm.
because it's so humid, but it's not as humid in the tank because it has better airflow. While I think that's better for your plants, I also think it's better for your frogs.
That's what I was just
Mhm.
gonna say is I think I'm guilty of that, and I know a lot of people are because the best looking vivariums I see that don't have a very natural balance of fans to mist are always super soaked, and the plants look great, the moss looks great, but the tank is, it's soaked, and that's I think the problem that a lot of us have is we think about the plants before the frogs instead of the frogs before the plants because it's what we see all the time. If we don't see the frogs, we still see the plants, you know?
I mean, before you take over, Jack, I just want to also mention, like I always struggle with trying to keep a balance. Like you said, you put fans in the tanks. Do you not? I recently started keeping a lot of micro orchids and miniature orchids, and they need
Mhm.
the airflow. But with Euro style tanks that have a natural vent, based on the circulation in the tank, you don't necessarily need a fan per se, but you have to
Yeah.
have some type of movement in the room. So if you have a fan in
Exactly.
the room, it creates some type of movement throughout the tank.
Yeah.
As long as there's some type of airflow, again, just because it's airflow doesn't mean it has to be dry. You just missed a little more. I've gone over a ton of people's houses that are breeders and keepers, and I've seen a million different methods of how people keep their frogs, and most
Mhm.
of them are successful. The frogs are very resilient, and
They're very
as
resilient.
long as
Mhm.
as long as you pretty much feed them, you really have to.
And
They take care of themselves, unless you put
yeah.
situation that are really, really wet with a lot of bacteria or things that,
Yeah. When
yeah,
it gets stagnant like that, that's when the issues
yeah,
start
right.
popping up for sure.
So, yeah, so for me, it was all
How
the
did
same, Josh. It's like the Caribbean, you've been to one island, you've been to them all, you know, I felt like,
Huh.
the environments were pretty much the same
okay.
except for, the ones close to the ocean, Jack, where was that place up from Red Frog Beach where we saw the frog that was changing colors, the green and blue gold dust?
Yeah, that's my little secret spot. Yeah, I'll share this quick story. So I
I didn't
promised
believe
these
him, Josh.
guys I I promised these guys that I'm like, there are blue Bastamentos. And they're like, bullshit. Like I'm like, no, there's blue and green Bastamentos. I will show you. And him and another guy on the trip, they're like, no way, whatever. And so I have this spot that I stumbled upon when I was exploring that island. It's a bit of a hike, and so we started the hike and everything, but there's a storm coming in. And so we're starting to pick up the pace because I'm like, oh, crap, like there's some serious clouds coming in, right? Skies were just fully gray. We finally get there, Mark, Jack, and I. Jack was the other guy. The rest of the group was kind of behind a bit, but I was picking up the pace, catching up with these guys. And I showed them where the spot is, and we searched for just a couple minutes, and we found them. And I showed, I'm like, I look here. We got these blue Bastamenos in the screen, and they were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it." We saw them just so briefly, and then it absolutely poured on us. We got there just in time to see those frogs, and then we had to turn around and go back and do this long, long hike back in the pouring rain. I'm sure Mark remembers that. Mark was you were
Oh, yeah.
marching around doing
Well, I ran. I ran.
your
Remember, I ran
army.
back. Remember, I ran back.
Yeah, but you were marching around doing your army chants too. I don't remember how they went, but yeah,
This
they
is
were.
this
I
it?
think I have a video of you doing it. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and so yeah, this little secret spot I got with every color that you've ever seen of a Bastamentos, and some that you haven't seen are there. It's greens, blues, yellows, oranges,
Yeah.
reds,
I didn't.
like whites, like solid, like white Bastamentos with black. Ridiculous. So
I didn't get a good shot because my cell phone, but it was changing in front of us, bro. It went from green to
it was
blue. It was
I've
crazy.
got I,
yeah,
I've got a couple
there yeah,
pictures
and
of them. I'll share up when I
Right.
put this up.
yeah,
So I had a
but
question for you since you've been
so
doing all these tours and all this photography work over there. Have you noticed in situ? Have you? Because it's something that's kind of like weird to me that I've never seen is anyone documenting the frogs eating. Like I've never seen anyone take a picture of them eating anything in the wild. And if I have, maybe I just didn't notice. But have you actually seen what they're like hunting in the wild? The Pamilio?
yeah, that's a great point because I've actually never seen one eat in the wild, nor have I seen a photo or video footage of one eating in the wild. We have, so Mark, if you remember at the Changuinola spot, remember those tiny, tiny termites we found?
Yep.
If yeah, so that was we assumed that that was one of their food sources there. I know they're eating they're mites and just little tiny whatever that's
Sure.
in the so ants and little mites and things. Geez, invertebrates was the word. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Little invertebrates.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually seen the food source and the frog eat that food. I have not seen that before, which is
I've seen
interesting. I don't know if
I've read about necropsy or like different things they've done to
yeah,
see, open them up and see what's inside. I've never had it
exactly, yeah.
broken down. I've always just heard it's like a diet of like smaller ants, termites, wasps.
Mhm.
I'm assuming there's like stingless wasp over there.
Any little inverts they can
Yeah.
yeah, just all sorts of little inverts, but yeah, Juan, who Mark knows, just posted the other day, actually, he's in Colombia. He posted a breakdown of it was a Phyllobates terribilis, and they were looking at the stomach contents of it, and it was like 40 something different, species and types of inverts that they identified, I think, which was really cool. I need to look into it in more depth and ask him more about it, but it looked really cool. But yeah, that stuff is very, very interesting to me, but I've never actually seen it happen. I've seen the bugs and all these little things that I assume are what they're eating in their habitats, but I haven't actually seen it happen yet.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I've always wondered
Yeah.
about that. I see everything else documented, like because I really I like the plants in
Yeah.
Panama. In fact, both of my vivs behind me, they're both well, with the exception of some of the neo bromeliads, they're 100% Panamanian, and I kind of did that on purpose. I like keeping biotopes and biotope specific.
Cool.
But
Yeah, that's
that
fun.
brings but that brings me to wanting to get bigger vivariums now because I want to actually keep the Panamanian bromeliads, which I believe is like, isn't it a form of Vercea or it's a larger bromeliad that's over there, right?
Yeah, honestly, in Bocas, there aren't a ton around there. I've seen
Yeah.
them
I didn't see a
in
lot of bromeliads in Bocas. No.
yeah, there aren't a lot. They're in mainland Panama, and yeah, I believe they're a Regia species. Yeah, in Bocas, honestly, there aren't that many. I mean, there were some at that tree that Mark was talking about at the cemetery, but they're pretty high up, and so like I haven't been hands on with them really, and I haven't identified them. But the Pamilio, I think, are using a lot of
Trash.
trash,
Leaves. They
Yeah,
eat
yeah,
leaves.
that's what I've heard. I've
literally
heard
in
that a
trash,
lot.
and
Leaf.
yeah,
Big leaves. Yep.
Weren't the
yeah,
locals
other like
doing
tree
weren't
holes
the
and things.
wasn't there I think wasn't it Chris that's passed now that wrote the Pamilio
Mhm.
books? wasn't he part of like
Yeah.
the Familial Project and they were going around putting cups up in the trees and water sources on the island? I don't know if it was just on
Yeah, I don't know.
Bastamentos or
I'm not totally sure about them doing it in Bocas del Toro and I know in Peru.
Yeah, Peru, they had a lot. But Jack, didn't they have
Peru, they
some
do.
in Solarte? Didn't they have some on the trees in Solarte?
I don't believe so. There was
Okay.
trash there,
Okay.
but I don't think there were any intentional ones there that I can remember.
Yeah.
so the trash
Unfortunately,
really is saving
but
them then.
The
yeah, right.
trash, bro, is what's saving
Don't
them.
litter, but yeah, no, they're so and yeah, like you said earlier, like asking about the conditions and stuff. Seriously, we find these things. They're in literally among trash. I've seen them hopping on bottles and styrofoam, and it's sad. It sucks to see, but it just shows how resilient they are, which is really cool. And just how, even with construction and plantations and things, they're everywhere. Like they just so able to adapt, which is really, really cool. But yeah, like in cacao plantations and banana plantations
Yep.
all over the place there, because the banana plants will hold water. The cacao pods will have water when they're on the ground. They'll fill with water. And so they're just are super, variable in the conditions that they can tolerate, which is cool. But yeah, I forget where I was going with this, but yeah, they're among trash,
That's
which is
that
crazy.
yeah, it's what it is.
Trash and construction, at least, you're seeing, okay, at least the frogs come back, which is cool. But still sad though.
Well, I wanna go over this morph that you guys found over there that is unlike anything I've ever seen, and I'll post a bunch of pictures up of it. I've got a few.
Yeah.
What is the deal with this? This is probably the most it is one of the most beautiful Pamilio I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So Josh, we were having lunch and we were there to see a morph. I think it was Darklands, right, Jack? We were looking at Darklands,
Yeah.
and some young lady says to me, "Would you like to see more frogs?" But she said it in Spanish, so I didn't understand her. I just knew Irana, and I'm like, "Yeah, yes, yes. Where do we have to go?"
More frogs, más ranas, yeah.
Jack's like, "Slow down, Mark. I don't know where she's taking us, right?" So we go into like a nature preserve, and we walk down probably a couple hundred yards, and it's beautiful. Like you can tell it's
Gorgeous.
private property,
Private
it's well-
property.
well maintained. And then this little kid says, "Here," and we look around and we're like, "Here, where?" We don't see
Yeah.
anything. We're along the edge of a river, and then right along a couple rock faces, covered in like baby tear type, peperomia.
Yeah. Mosses and the
This
type. Yeah,
is
beautiful, beautiful.
bright red frogs, almost like Red Frog Beach. And I'm like, my. And we go over, and I'm like, "Jack, here's one." And then he goes, "There's another one." And before you know it, they're everywhere around these trees. And it was, I didn't know what they were. I'm like, these are the most beautiful Pomelo I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I don't
They're
think I've
they're
seen
very
them in
similar to Rio Bronco.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're really similar to Rio Bronco, but even cooler though.
I feel like they're closer to remember those Pomelo at Cemetery they talked about that had the high white?
Yeah.
They were very similar to those, but they had more of like speckled patterns on the legs. Like they gave it
They're
a little
just-
bit.
There's
There's
no
like-
white on these guys though.
Yeah, very little white. Looks like just maybe on the belly a little bit, but it's just they've got like characteristics of other things I've seen, but not all in one. It's like, and I think people are gonna really enjoy these pictures. I sure as hell did. I mean, when I saw them, I'm like, I
Yeah.
had to go check all the books. I'm like, God, what is this thing? This has only happened a few times, and it seems like it was recently. I think it was this, and then I was looking through the DN, the big book they came out with, the Gilf. I always say the name wrong, but the Gilftigers or
Gift kickers, whatever. I don't know. I don't speak
they have
Dutch or
what
German,
you,
whichever that is.
they've got a
Dutch.
picture of what you guys
Yeah.
were talking about in there, a solid black and white Bastamentos, and
Cool.
it's just like I've never seen. I mean, because it is solid black and white. It isn't like a little twinge of green or a little bit of this. It's just a black
Right.
and
It's
white
like it's stark, just
Bastamentos.
that. Yeah.
Just
That's
black
cool.
and
Jack,
white.
Nice.
So so I've always thought the location or the names of these places where we get these frogs were true. We thought that this was really where they really came from.
Right.
Look at a map, and what I've found over time, speaking to people like Sean and Strictly in different places, they just kind of throw out a ballpark area where they think the frogs came from.
Right.
So in my mind, when I think of, how do you pronounce it, Jack? I say Yuma, but it's the
I say Uyama. It's Uyama
Right.
is the river. Uyama.
So when we see Wayama, I'm thinking of a brown and white, frog
Right.
that's
Like
in
real,
copy.
like La Gloria or
Right.
a Loma Estrella. Like
Right,
those are
that-
the
that are not-
Yeah, Gloria is the black and white, and they can have a
Right.
different variation. Yuma can be
Right.
green, blue to brown, and
Ye-
Loma Estrella is what I think we
Bro,
got into the States.
Josh, I'm gonna send you the
And
pictures.
Robalo was another one.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
Robalo's another one. I'm gonna send you the
Yeah.
pictures of the geographic area that we found these frogs along the riverbed.
Hmm.
Okay.
And you
Yeah,
sit and you
I'll
go,
check it. I'll check it
It's
out
different.
on the.
right, Jack? And you're going, this can't
Right,
be.
because Uyama is not a location. That's
You got
not like
it's not
that's the
Right,
river,
right.
and it's a river, so it goes through all sorts of different locations. And
right.
so,
Right.
yeah, these are they're found along the river. I'll say that, but yeah, private property, just not even close really to where you'd find Uyama or Rio La Gloria or Robalo, any of those black and white morphs that are also so freaking cool. And so they're also along that river too. I've been along that river at a different spot where those frogs are, like at La Gloria and stuff. And oh man, yeah, just like black and white frogs. So cool. But yeah, they're black with blue. And then I was just there again a couple weeks ago and found more. All orange and red. They're just orange and red frogs. Sorry, with the black and blue, but it's not like it's that. It's a very, very, not super variable locale. They all look very similar
Mhm.
and they're either cherry red or a really nice orange. And so I actually just did some more shots of them. I'll send you more of them, Josh, so you can put them
Yeah,
up here if you
yeah.
want to and see some more variability of them and stuff. But it's cool because it's a pretty standard looking, and just by standard, I mean like they all look very, very similar. But yeah, just the red and orange are the two things that are changing with these guys a lot, which is cool. But the red ones are red, like they're red frogs. It's not a fake red,
It
how some are,
makes me
like kind of
wonder
washed
how
out.
many it makes me wonder how many of these frogs are out there that we haven't ever, seen. I know people's life's
Yeah,
work has been studying these, but it's like every
yeah,
year somebody comes out with something I've never seen. The last one I think was the different Vicenti. Like I knew
hmm
there was reds,
yeah.
I knew there was greens, and now I'm like, now there's people in Europe with green spotted ones, and there's supposedly yellow ones and brown ones, and it's just like,
There, yeah.
just got to
And a
get
lot
out
of that
there.
is just from exploring more because
Yeah.
so like in Boca's, well, like central Panama is where the Vicenti are found, and just a lot of it just hadn't been that explored for herps, for poison frogs specifically, right?
Right.
And then Bocas del Toro along the mainland there, there's the one main road, but now a lot of new roads, like little offshoots, are being put in and constructed, right? And so it's giving
Access.
access to new areas now. So that's maybe part of why some of the new things have been popping up a little bit because yeah, just recently in recent years they've been putting in more roads. And before you just have to like bushwhack or whatever and get out into the middle of the jungle. And obviously there's still areas like that. And so I'm constantly wondering what other stuff is out there, right? But it's cool that now there is a little more access to some of
And,
these
and,
different locales.
and thanks to, Jack obviously has, through his love of photography, shared a lot of his pictures and experiences. But there's a lot of other froggers behind the scenes that I talk to that have been to Central and South America that are like
Mhm.
myself and have experience with different morphs and seen other things that we don't share. And I
Yeah,
want to be
right. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff for
yeah,
sure.
I want to definitely apologize because I went through some of my hard drive just last night and I knew I was coming on this show and I have so much stuff that I need to share, and I
Yeah.
know other people that have been to Colombia and Panama that that need to share, obviously for multiple reasons we're worried about poachers and, we kind of are not always wanting to put all your stuff out there, but there's a lot of
Of course.
behind the scenes stuff that people will be interested in seeing. Having said
Yeah.
that, in addition to the tours in Peru, I found so many emeregi that we don't have in the hobby. There's so many large obligates that I know people have seen and that shares picture with me. And I'm like, dude, why haven't you shared that? And they're like, well, why haven't you shared that? And there really is. We just don't find time or feel the need the validity to to feel validated by sharing stuff. I think it's beneficial to the hobby. So Josh, I hope you
Yeah.
have more people that come on to the podcast with you here and share their
Mhm.
experiences and just talk about it. I mean, it's something that I think is needed, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I'm
for
glad
sure.
I get
There's
yeah.
a lot of cool stuff out there, and it's always fun to learn about a new frog or see a picture of a new frog and stuff. And I know there's still stuff out there, which is really cool. New things are being found, not all the time, but frequently enough. Like things are popping up, and so it's super exciting. It's not like well, we know everything, we know about everything. There's still frogs out there that we definitely don't know about. So it's encouraging
Right.
and it's a lot of fun for sure.
I am going to get better at sharing some of the stuff. It might be some older stuff, but I think there still might be some value. I will say
Yeah.
this, that if you keep dart frogs and you can make your way, whether it's through Jack or some other vendor, or even if you want to go by yourself, if you feel, travel inclined to make your own arrangements, you should go see dart frogs in some capacity, whether it's just a simple trip to Costa Rica to see Pomelio and Aratus, or whether you can make a trip to the Bocas or the mainland to see all the Pomelio. And if you're really adventurous, go to Colombia. And if you want something right in the middle, Panama floats your boat. So if you can afford to save your little pennies and nickels up, to go on one of these trips, for a frogger, it's the trip of a lifetime, So
Yeah.
I can tell you, like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I've been to those countries to see those frogs in the wild, and it's one of the best experiences of my life. So having said that, like I said, Dart Frog Dojo, Marc Knox, I'm easy to find. Jack?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, man. Yeah, like Mark said, I mean, obviously, I'd love if anybody wants to come on a trip with me. I obviously would love that. But yeah, if you can make it out there, like he said, just in any way, if you're into frogs, seeing them in the wild is as good as it gets. It is such an incredible experience. I remember the first time I saw my very first star frog in the wild, and it's incredible. And getting to see all the habitats and all the different things that influence them and just everything, and just seeing it where they actually live and everything that their natural world is like, it's just incredible. If anybody's interested in doing a trip with me, you can find me on Instagram, Jack Small Frogs. I've got my Facebook page, Jack Small Photo Tours. My website is also jacksmallphototours.com. Yeah, I offer these trips to Panama and Peru and Colombia. We do a lot of photography stuff. I'll teach you all the photography and all my gear and tips and tricks and everything for getting good photos. But then also they're fully inclusive guided trips where I partner with local guides. And so we've got an itinerary for all the different frogs we're going to see. Like Mark said, you get to know each other really, really well after being together with each other for a week in the jungle. And it's a lot of fun. Everybody always has a great time and leaves being great friends and lots of great memories and everything. So anyway, if you'd like to learn more about my trip, reach out to me on any of those platforms that I just mentioned. Yeah, I post most of my photos. I post on Jack Small Frogs, my Instagram account. So check out that page if you want to see more photos of cool frogs that I find on my travels. And I've got a few trips coming up too. So yeah, if you're interested, reach out. And if anybody ever wants to chat about frogs or anything about frogs or photography or anything, just hit me up. I'm always down to chat.
I had a great time.
Hopefully.
That was a blast. Like literally going down those
Yeah.
trips was a dream come true for me. So I appreciate, being able to
That's awesome.
go.
Yeah, for sure. And I would love to have you if you want to run on a run back a Peru trip. They're my favorite of the 3 trips I do. The Peru ones are my favorite, I think. If you ever want to do it, I'd love to have you for that too. If you're one.
Paul and Marc Knox for being here with me, having a conversation. Hopefully I can have you guys on in the future. And thank you for showing up.
Yeah,
All right. Episode
100%.
2 in the
Thanks
book.
for having me, man.
Anytime.
You guys have a great night.
Take care.
Take care, man.
Hello, everybody. This is Alex at Frog Daddy. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Poisoned Podcast. One lucky subscriber will get $250 on a Frog Daddy gift card if they can answer this question correctly. How many localities do we currently keep of Pomelio at Frog Daddy? Thank you guys for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, this is Josh Groves with the Poison Podcast. If you enjoyed watching today's episode, please do me a huge favor and like and subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook pages. You can also find us at Poisoned NY on YouTube and Poison Podcast on Facebook. Hope you can join me on the next episode coming out soon.